I have 2 kids with my ex-wife, a son John and daughter Sally. I'm remarried to my wife. I'm very close with my kids. My son is engaged to Abby, who seems nice but has been a bit pushy trying to create relationships with me and my wife, though she's also awkward with her. Abby isn't close to her family. She told us many stories why, and while some of her complaints don't seem awful, it's not my place to judge, and I didn't live it, so I can't know anyway. We've tried to be welcoming, but Abby has forced her way into some family traditions where she wouldn't have been invited, and some where no one outside of specific family would have. She has been calling Sally sis since they were only dating a few months, has an odd sister-mother-in-law thing she does with my wife, and the one I'm not a fan of wants me to be like a father to her. Not because we've clicked or anything. We are very different people. Not saying that in a bad way, just saying it's not based on how we get along or anything. My kids and I have a tradition when they come over that we have a private catch-up in my office study before they leave, which is now even more important to them because while they both get along well with my wife, they don't want to have personal conversations around her yet. Abby asked if we could talk, and after I explained the tradition, John later asked that I do it, saying she'd never had a caring conversation with her dad. We compromised that I didn't include her in the tradition, but do join the 2 of them for coffee and let her talk. Then she started calling me dad. They weren't even engaged yet. John pulled me aside and begged me to give her that. Laid this whole thing on me about me always being the dad she always wanted right in front of her. And she just wanted that. Told me she cried watching me and Sally together. I didn't like it, but I do feel bad. So fine, I gave her that. She wants me to walk her down the aisle in the father-daughter dance. I don't want to walk her down, and I walk with a cane, so dancing is hard. At my own wedding, I only danced twice. John is begging for me to do one, preferably the aisle. They came over Sunday. John and I were talking. I thought to address it when Abby walked in without knocking, asking if he'd told me yet. I asked what. John said she wanted me to say something about having a second daughter now in my speech and how I loved her. I just looked at him. She asked if I'd do the walk and dance for Sally. I said, of course. She yelled, "She's my daughter too." And I said it will never be the same. Sally is my actual daughter. I tried to explain. I'd talk about her being a happy addition to the family, and I love how happy she makes Jack, which I thought was a good compromise. But she started crying. John apologized and they left, but he called me when they were home, nearly begging me to. Am I the jerk because I won't lie and say I love her or she's my daughter? Now for a few important comments. One commenter said, "You have your boundaries. Abby sounds like she's developed this fantasy involving you and your family. That can't be healthy." I replied, "John told me she really wants to be part of the family, but she started so quickly, I wonder how much is us versus the idea of us. I've been told she immediately was obsessed with the relationship my kids and I have. The yelling, I was more concerned for John than upset, honestly. She seemed not okay right then." Another commenter mentioned, "This doesn't sound like it's about you or Sally as actual people. It's about Abby's fantasy of having a family." I replied, "She knows Sally a bit now. With me, she learns surface-level things and approaches me. But when I try to engage, she immediately acts like we're so close and switches subjects to something related to how much closer we should be. John says it's nerves, but it doesn't seem like it." Then another commenter warned, "You have to keep correcting her. She pushed this far with the aisle speech because you gave them an inch with the dad, etc." I said, "That's partly why I'm upset. I have tried compromising because I want to help my son, but at some point, understanding has to go both ways. I understand she wants family, and I know she's partly jealous because I like my daughter's girlfriend more, but we're in the same field, and she let it happen naturally. I feel like it's all give and no take." Now for the 1-month update. I had planned on writing this sooner, but life got in the way in a couple of really good ways, but people were helpful and asked for updates, and I have a surprise-free day. So here it goes. Mother's Day. My kids and their partners go to visit my ex-wife. So it turns out my ex-wife and Abby are a lot closer than I realized. She calls her mom, which is part of where this comes from. Also, apparently, my ex has been egging it on. On Mother's Day, they were talking about the wedding, and I guess whenever Abby referred to me, it was as Dad. My son apparently told her to let it go, which led to yelling. Abby about deserving to be my daughter, ex telling her that she's right, son telling her that I am trying and she should be realistic about things, Sally telling her I only had one daughter, which was apparently a response to Abby saying to her that as my daughters, they should be united. According to my son, Abby was crying. According to Sally, she was crying and yelling and kicked something before going to her room. And Sally told me she went off on her mom, but will not elaborate, so I don't know what was actually said. But knowing Sally, woo boy. Around 2 a.m., I got a text from Sally's partner's phone saying, Abby really is great. She hasn't been perfect, but you should give her a chance and you will learn to love her. I saw it when I woke up. I tried to text her back but was blocked, so I called Sally, but they were driving. They stopped by my place later that day because I am on the way, and my daughter prefers my liquor and cooking, and they told me about the night before. At the end, I asked to speak to her partner alone. I asked if I had done something to upset her. She was confused, and I told her I was blocked. She said I wasn't, but checked her phone and I was, and I said it was after her message, and she asked what message. I showed her it was not on her phone anymore. At that point, we brought in Sally and caught her up. Neither of them were happy. A couple of days later, John and Abby dropped by unannounced. Not something we really do in this family, but okay, fine. I had made salmon, which doesn't take long to cook. I cooked 2 more, and my wife served while I made drinks. The entire night was Abby trying to bring up the wedding, John trying to change the subject, and Abby not allowing that. We talked logistics because I'm helping them get some good deals through some professional contacts I have. Finally, she just said, so I was talking to Mom. She said that you can walk me down the aisle and she'll do the dance, or you can dance and she'll walk. It's your call, but you need to choose soon. I reiterated that I could not dance. She tried arguing that I had danced a little at my wedding, but I made it clear that is different and did not feel comfortable walking her. She got upset and said, Mom loves me. Why can't you? I felt bad but couldn't lie. I pointed out that she had John who loved her, my ex-wife, friends, she had people who love her. She said, but other than my ex-wife, those aren't my parents. I said, neither am I. She was very emotional, so my wife and I gave them a few minutes. My son and I were alone later, and he looked exhausted. He said the problem was that after Mother's Day, Abby had called Sally and kept saying they are both my daughters, that I did not get to be close with one, but not both, and that it was them against me. But at that, Sally cried havoc and let slip the dogs of war. Things were said. Grievances were aired. John had to hang up before it got worse, but I guess Abby was shaken. But there was a new problem. Abby had decided in her head that I did not mean what I have been saying and was just doing it for Sally. He told me he would handle it. He did not. So now I get text messages from Abby every couple of days, acting like we have a secret relationship Sally doesn't know about. She even called herself my secret daughter and lolled. She invited my wife to lunch, saying 2 out of 3 of his girls going out. She has even started using the pressure of showing up at events like a recent barbecue to play a certain image. She hugs me more and holds it, wants to do pictures with just me or my wife and I, but always a few with just me to post with captions I do not like. My wife is getting especially annoyed because of how she is with her. I guess Abby surprised her with Father's Day plans for me that had to be shut down. As it is, she still inserted herself into the day, but she has a soft spot for her, and when Abby gets emotional, she caves. My wife is a sweetheart. I asked him if he is upset with me, and he said no. He just wished it was different. He said we're good, but he's worried he and Sally aren't, which is when I took the advice of some people and suggested premarital counseling. He said he would talk about it. Abby is insisting Sally go to her fitting. That shop should pay-per-view that potential Royal Rumble because Sally is not holding her feelings back anymore. I told him Sally loves him and I'll talk to her, but for now it is stressful all around. Abby driving my wife crazy with her ideas for what my girls should be doing, driving me crazy with dad-daughter content, drove Sally to the edge, and oh yeah, last night sent me an email with 3 styles of father-daughter dances and song options, so I'm not feeling any more respected or heard than before. The 6 of us have barely been in the same room in order to let things calm down since Father's Day, which was great until it was a shoot show. Sorry this is so long. With all the craziness, this is still the abridged version. We are supposed to meet Friday. Sally's partner and I have a bet going about how bad it will go. So onward and upward. I hope you fathers had a less dramatic day than I did. And by any chance, does anyone know exactly how bad of a crime I need to commit to enter witness protection? Just curious. Now for a few important comments. One commenter said, NTA, but Abby needs serious mental health help. This is beyond a little needy to downright pathological. What's going to happen when she finally realizes she is not going to get her way? Someone's going to get hurt. Your daughter and her partner need to step back and not engage at all, and you and your wife should attempt to do the same. Tell your son you love him and will do your best to support him, but until Abby gets help, you cannot allow her to be around you and your wife. I wouldn't be surprised if Abby has a history of this type of behavior with others in her past. Then OP replied, I do not know her enough to know about her history, but this does worry me, especially since my wife and I recently got some good news that has me feeling especially protective of her. My wife has a hard time with the idea of cutting contact since they get together occasionally. I pointed out she needs to take care of herself, plus Abby has my ex-wife as a mother figure now, so she should be off the hook. Another commenter added, I can't believe your son is dumb enough to still want to marry this walking red flag. At this point, you need to have a talk with your son. Tell him that his fiancée is making you, your wife, and his sister extremely uncomfortable, and that you have serious concerns about her emotional stability because of her inability to accept boundaries and being told no. I would also tell him that if she doesn't back off ASAP, you will make your boundaries physical and not attend events she's at or invite her to your events. Personally, I'd tell my son I won't attend the wedding because I can't support him marrying someone so toxic, but that my door is open to help him escape her once he's ready. I know not everyone could or would do that, but I would if it was one of my kids. And witness protection is for witnesses of big crimes, not really those who commit them. You'd be better off just faking your death and running lol. Then OP said, the shame is we used to sort of like her, my daughter, my wife, and myself. Early on, she was interesting, diverse interests. She has traveled a lot for her age. She and I even have overlap in musical taste. The problem was when she decided she wanted this, her personality changed, and she started getting pushy, changing subjects to what she wanted if they were subjects she liked. It was like everything was put on hold until we acquiesced, which we haven't, so it has not gone on. You make a good point about witness protection. Plus, I have been meaning to take up location tracker-free boating and scuba diving in sharky waters. Another commenter asked, did you tell your son about the fake message from Sally's partner and the blocking? I don't know that you ever confirmed that Abby did it, but that is another level of crazy from just inserting herself into your life. OP responded, I do not think confirmation is possible, but her phone was where Abby would have been able to get it, according to Sally. Sally asked to be the one to tell him, this is crazy, but with everything going on, job stuff, great news, family stuff, best news, wedding stuff, I try to watch my drinking, and the family exploding a bit at Father's Day. I honestly forgot to ask her what happened. I have to call her later. It's funny, until you sit down and write everything out, you don't realize how much there is. It just feels like one thing after another. Finally, another commenter said, NTA, you mentioned in another comment your wife is pregnant. Be prepared for Abby to go into overdrive, especially if it's another girl. Her level of obsession is very concerning. If you can't convince your wife to step back now, give it about 5 to 6 months when Abby has taken over the baby shower, picked out the nursery, posted the ultrasounds online, insists on being in the delivery room, and gives your wife a full belly grope every 3.8 minutes during visits. Revisit the conversation then. My daughter said the same thing about the baby coming. Your second paragraph sounds like hell. Thankfully, my wife has a close circle of friends for those things. But I am sure you are right that Abby will try to insert herself in our pregnancy journey, like she did my Father's Day. Now for the update. I have gotten requests for updates on my situation, and as I enjoy a refreshing mojito and my wife her nojito, life feels good and the perfect time to amuse the world with my pain and familial drama. Plus, a cousin of mine who apparently reads these and knows my situation gave me the convincing argument of, dude, you can't keep people hanging, and how can I argue with that airtight argument? I apologize for how long this is. A lot has happened. My wife's pregnancy is going well. Keeping her as stress-free and pampered as possible has been my focus. It is such a different experience this time, both because of how much more involved I can be and how much better a relationship I have with my wife than I had with my ex. My daughter Sally has been great. Even her partner has been great, helping with the nursery or driving her around when I can't. My wife doesn't know because it is a surprise, but my son has been building a crib for the baby, modeled after the one I built for him and his sister, to show my wife his support. My son is a good man, and he is still in there. He just has a soft spot for Abby, which I guess gets us to the part of the movie where Godzilla shows up and starts busting up buildings. So I called a family meeting with my kids to talk about the situation. Told John his sister was only doing wedding activities she wanted to, and that the guilting requests needed to stop, that this was hurting his relationship with his sister. Sally was happy I said it, so she did not have to yet again. I told him if he did not stop her from messaging me, I would block her with a bluntly honest explanation why. We got a lot out. John seemed to understand, but then a few days later they insisted on coming to talk. Sally and I decided we would get everything out, so all of us ate at our place. Abby started in immediately about baby shower stuff, and I told that is the kind of thing we wanted to talk about. I told her that I understood she has been trying to fill a hole that she has, that she thought she was getting a father, a second mother. She calls my ex-wife mom, apparently, and a sister. I told her it was still possible, but that she needed to start listening to us. I told her that for the sake of family, we would give her a fresh start. If she agreed that moving forward, she would respect our boundaries. My daughter did not love this idea, but loves her brother, and was willing to try. Abby tried to say that since we were starting over, we could define what the relationship would be and just be family. We told her we were not ready for that it needs to happen organically. She got mad that I am closer with my daughter's partner, which is true, but we just get along, and that she deserved it for trying so hard. My daughter said something about trying things we actually want. She ran to our bathroom. He ran after her. After a while, I checked on him. I could hear her repeating, "This is not what I wanted." My wife, daughter, and her partner went out to the patio to give them privacy and salvage the night. After a bit, I got a text saying they had just left. I checked in with him the next day, and he said they talked more at home, and she understood. For a couple of weeks, things were good. The texts stopped, except the occasional wedding question, since it was getting closer. She stopped pushing herself on my wife and Sally, and we thought she was involving us less in wedding planning out of respect, since as it was, they only got the venue at the rate they did because of my professional connections, and they know I was willing to help but not interested in helping plan, even if I am good at event planning. But then I got a call from the venue telling me the card I used had been declined. Now, this is a specific card I use for big purchases because of the miles, so I knew it had a high limit. That was how I learned that they had changed dates by 2 months, despite being informed I would still be out much of the money because it was too close to the date. I was furious. I mean, I have been lucky in life financially, but I am not blow-off deposits like nothing wealthy. Called my son, said he needed to get his butt to the house. Just him. They both came. When they arrived, I opened the door. She actually started with, "Dad." I think I just replied, "You have got to be kidding me," and walked toward the table. Abby had the nerve to ask where dinner was. My response was not polite, as I made it clear that was not why they were here. I hoped my son would not lie to me, so I asked what was going on with the venue. She started going into wedding details, but my son interrupted to tell me they postponed because my ex-wife was unavailable because of a surgery, and he had not told me because he was putting money together to pay the lost money himself, and he had just reached out to guests to let them know. And that is when Abby's mouth opened. We have extra time to work on our dance. Now, during this time, my wife came home, and I was walking her toward the bedroom when Abby said that. My pregnant wife with me, I said, calmly, I have different feelings about that and will elaborate further shortly, or something like that. Then I laid my wife down and got her water, turned on her symphonic covers of popular songs, and walked back to the table and said something like, "You are out of your fen mind. Have you even been listening?" I made it clear I was done with this nonsense. We all were, and kind of lost it. Asking she did not hear us last time because her head was up her butt. She was stunned silent. What a beautiful sound, and looked at me while I, admittedly with little filter, explained what Sally and I thought of our time with her and her attempts to force us to love her without even getting to know us. She started crying and stood up and shouted, "Then what was this even for?" John asked what she meant, if she meant them, and he started to freak out. She was frantic and said she meant delaying the wedding because, and I'm pouring another drink to write this, it was a ploy. My ex-wife and her decided if I had more time, I would come around. Apparently, my ex told her not to worry about the money because I am loaded. She has always been bitter but fine. I make so much more than I did when we were married, as if that is out of spite rather than my career arc. I think she did that on purpose, frankly. But she not only told me that lie, she and my ex told John as well. He was distraught, repeating, "You lied to me," as she tried to spin it, but he was letting it out about how much he has defended her and covered for her, and she lied to him too. She was defensive and blamed my ex for telling her things and me for being stubborn. She yelled, "Why can't I just call him dad?" And finally, after so long, I heard John respond, "Because he is not your dad." She started crying, and something about his being the one that told she could call me that, and he said he told her she might be able to eventually, but he had told her again and again to slow down. She started sobbing and went to sit on her chair but missed and fell on the floor. Appreciating physical humor to break the tension, I admittedly chuckled and hid my mouth behind my drink. This all led to a lot of sobbing. I said I needed to check on my wife, and as I walked out, she was repeating, "I just want him to be my dad too." I came out and he was walking her to the door and apologized. I said not to. They left. He came over a few days later and said they had a long talk at home. He even asked her if she would have dated him if there was never a chance of being in the family. He believed her when she said yes, but she admitted I was a big draw as well. I was the kind of dad she always wanted. My relationship with Sally is what she always wanted, and the way she said it gave John doubts that she loves him for him. I talked about marriage counseling, how his mother and I tried it, and while it did not save us, it provided clarity and an impartial voice. I pointed out they both like coming to me, but I cannot be impartial, and if they are trying, then they need to do it for real. Abby texted asking if I was the one who suggested therapy. I responded with, "Does it matter if John wants to?" She asked why it is so bad. She wants to know what I think, and I just said, John is the man whose opinion should matter most to her. They fought due to the text. She agreed to the counseling, and the wedding has been postponed. I may have done a dance. So they are in counseling. He said she struggles, but I obviously do not know details. She is pressing for me and Sally to go to a session with her. Sally told her she did not want to hear Sally unfiltered, and I am not interested. Abby has been leaving Sally alone. She stopped texting me except for the occasional general question, which includes some attempt to go deeper. My wife still occasionally spends time with her because she is very into her pregnancy, more so than I like, but it is my wife's call. So that is where we are. Sorry, it was so long, but alcohol makes for a poor editor. Now for a few important comments. When asked how Abby is going to deal with the credit card she ran up, OP said, "We have already talked payment plan. John insists he is not helping her, and I believe it is mostly her. but him kicking in a little. Also, I am making them scale back. She was unhappy, but John actually told her she could not complain when she tried. Regarding OP's ex-wife causing turmoil, OP shared, I did not mention it because it already felt like I was writing a novel, but she has had big consequences with my son, who is furious with her, and my daughter, who apparently unloaded on her before mostly cutting her off. It's an entire update length in itself. My daughter pushed my ex-wife's face into a dessert. That's my girl. Then a commenter asked, what's it going to take before your son wakes up and realizes that this is not the person he wants to spend the rest of his life with? She sounds unhinged, not the idiot. OP responded, he seems to at least be looking at her more honestly now. I am hoping counseling helps him get there. Another commenter added, actually, OP, the toxin in this whole mix is your ex-wife. She has twisted and messed with this girl from day one. I'd bet a bunch that, but for the influence of that woman, all of you could have evolved into a nice family dynamic. Unfortunately, the person you divorced hasn't changed. Your son and daughter should shut her down. She saw that poor girl's insensitivities and has exploited her. Send the venue tab to her attention. OP replied, after seeing the suggestion on here, I texted him about 40 minutes ago that he should bill his mom. This is truly awful. She tried alienation when we split, but has not done anything to this extent. John said in therapy they are discussing her influence, though understandably, he did not get more detailed than that. My son is furious with his mom. I think he sees her more like Sally does now. Finally, a commenter said, your wife is not helping the situation by letting her be part of this pregnancy. She's leeching off that and will use that to be part of the family. I have no doubt she will see the child as a sibling and through that loophole, see you as her dad. Sorry, but your wife is an idiot right now. Hope your son soon wakes up and leaves her crazy self. OP responded, I agree my wife should have cut her off at least during the pregnancy. She has at least started inviting a friend to go along so they are not usually alone. That alone sometimes gets Abby to cancel. The sister thing is a concern I have as well. Am I the idiot for laughing off my husband's creepy ex-friend's attempts to reconnect through weird packages? Me, 30F, with my fiancé, 29M, of 12 years, waiting for a package from the girl he cheated on me with. Well, the title says it all. My fiancé, Oliver, and I have been together for 12 years, stuck together through thick and thin, LDR, the usual problems of a couple starting off very young, etc. In the last years, he has been struggling a lot with depression, anxiety, but he is slowly getting better. At some point of our LDR, we were living in 2 separate countries, and during his stay, he became very good friends with 2 other people, Ben and Sarah. The 3 of them bonded through shared experiences, same mental health issues, etc. At some point, he came back, we started living together, eventually became engaged. We decided on a long engagement, 2+ years, since we were both settled on long academic paths. Our relationship, that had at some points been turbulent, settled very well as we both acquired maturity and got to really know each other during our daily lives. Things were peachy. 3 years ago, Sarah moved closer to where we lived for a 2-year stay. We were all good friends, everything good, etc. Long story short, my fiancé cheated on me with her, short before she left the country, emotional affair included. Found it by snooping, bad on me. I was devastated. I cut contact with her immediately, demanded him to do the same, and almost broke up with him. We were separated 2 months. It was rough because at that time I had no access to therapy or counseling, and I was really far away from home, but my friends were kick-ass and supported me emotionally all that time. After these 2 months and a lot of soul-searching, we took the first tentative steps to be together again. It took me a long time to forgive him and to recover my trust in him, but little by little we healed and we made it work again. This was 2 years ago, and things are really good. Ben did not take the news of their separation too kindly, and he has been passive-aggressive to Oliver about him not talking to Sarah. Oliver has reacted well and has been adamant about not contacting him again. 2 weeks ago, Ben told my fiancé that he had given our new address to Sarah because she wanted to send us a package with stuff belonging to Oliver. He says that she has nothing of him, and I believe it. They have never lived together. Most of their friendship, they have been living in different places. He has been really anxious about all this matter. He does not want any contact with her. I personally do not care about her, but he is dreading the day the package arrives. If it comes when I am in the house, I just will throw it away. But I do not want him to receive it and get an anxiety attack. So what is your advice? I know I do not have to protect my fiancé from this stuff, but he is hurting and I do want to support him. I do not think it is compromising material because I already found the compromising material. Welp. I think it is a passive-aggressive way of reminding us of her existence. And what shall we do with his friend Ben? Now for a few comments. I left out some details that might be relevant. Here they are. I do not think the package contains proof or details I still do not know. When she was living in the same country as us, she was still 600 kilometers away, so there were not really any chances to meet without me knowing. I know when it happened. Later, she moved to another continent. At that time, I demanded him 1, access to all his accounts. He complied. And 2, that he blocked her everywhere. He did it too, and I believe him, because when she actually tried to contact us later about Ben, I will elaborate later. She had to do it through common friends. His anxious reaction does not surprise me. He used to have very serious issues with social anxiety, to the point of being paralyzed about any kind of unpleasant interaction. He has been working on his mental issues, gotten therapy and meds, etc., and now is much better. He reacted maturely to the last developments. He told me immediately, and he understands that it is his mess to clean, but he suffered. Today I picked up a huge package, taller than a person, from a neighbor, and when he went through the door and when he saw it, he really tensed up. Okay, that was kind of funny in a messed up way. This might be pretty relevant too, but I kind of understated Ben's reaction. He did not take well at all his 2 best friends not talking anymore. As I said, the 3 of them were a very close group, but he in particular had a magical vision of the trio, being friends forever. He was into Sarah a lot and spent hours talking to my fiancé about how much he loved her. I have the feeling that Ben is into my fiancé as well. When my fiancé told him that he and Sarah did not talk anymore and why, Ben seemed to take it okay, but 2 weeks later he contacted her to say he was about to self-harm. That's why she contacted us. We contacted Ben's family. He was okay. Fiancé set boundaries with him, but did not cut him off completely. I am starting to think that Ben's reason to give her our address is his particular way of punishing my fiancé for leaving the magical trio. My personal feelings. All this drama has been annoying. The general advice seems to be to cut off Ben, and I think it is spot on. I will tell Oliver that I think it is the best idea. He is on the fence about it. About the cursed package. Personally, I lean towards throwing it away without opening. I do not want to have anything to do with that dweeb. However, you are right, it is not my decision to make. If, when it comes, I will offer him the choice either to throw it away or to go through the contents together and probably toss them away afterward. Thank you. Now for the 1-year update. So, I know this is ancient history, but we got an update, and I have several private messages asking me for an update if something happened. So yes, we got the package last week, and it did not disappoint. After reading the advice here, I sat down with him. We decided we did not want the thing, so he wrote a message to Ben saying, "Tell Sarah we do not want anything from her," and then he blocked him. This all happened last year. Meanwhile, life went on. He changed jobs, he is still in academia, and now he is way more happy and relaxed. My job is well paid and interesting, and I can keep some other projects on the side. We got married this summer, and our wedding was perfect for us. Lively, bombastic, lots of food and alcohol, and our friends and family together. It was expensive, but we did not give a damn. This month, my husband is on a conference trip on another continent, so I am home alone. When I arrived home in the evening, there was a package addressed to him in the mailbox, with a stamp from a place where I know she lived and a sender we don't know. I thought for a moment, oh my, this may be her, but then I thought that it would be pretty crazy of her to send it now. That night, I was Skyping with my husband and made a comment about the parcel. I mentioned the name of the sender and he did not know the name, so I proposed that I opened it with him on camera. Well, turns out I was right on the money. It contained several postcards wishing him happy birthdays and Merry Christmases, all unsigned. Also, little notes such as dance in the rain, look at the clouds, walk barefoot, that kind of platitudes. And it had a book, a young adult romance book. I remember saying aloud, "Oh, for frick's sake," when I saw it. Meanwhile, my husband had a face like he had seen a cockroach in his sandwich. The book itself had a sad face on the dedication page and a small note saying, "Read the sequel. You will understand." It was crammed with notes in small script, and sometimes the letters had been traced several times over. All of the notes were very idealized descriptions of the heroine, about how magical and beautiful she was, about the things she did, etc. Some of the notes were also about the main character agonizing about staying with her or leaving her to fit in, or descriptions about how they made out. Yuck. There were also drawings of the heroine who looked like an idealized version of Sarah. I am not gonna lie, I laughed my butt off at this freaking manic pixie dream wannabe. My husband was less amused and more creeped out. He said that she was psycho and that he did not want that shoot at home. I kind of forgot about the book for the following days because last week was my week from hell and I had to work 70 hours. I normally work 30 because, apart from my job, I took a 2-week project working in-house for a company and I organized an art exhibition on the weekend. Also, I got pretty bad health news from a close friend, think incurable and degenerative, so the topic of Sarah was out of my mind. Yesterday, I finally had time to think about it, and I got angry at that jerk. They have not met in 3 years. Who the frick does this dweeb think she is? Etc., etc. I considered unblocking her briefly to tell her to stay the frick away from us, but discarded the idea. Then I considered finding out her address and sending her a copy of Holes by Louis Sachar and 20 minimalist peppies printed between the pages with a note, "This is a riddle. If you solve it, I will leave my wife for you. Love, Fiancée." Then I realized I would rather ignore her, so I threw the notes in the recycling bin and I put the book in a free box so somebody can take it home. That is all. No threats, no pictures, no positive pregnancy tests. It was anticlimactic, but honestly, it was a welcome distraction in a heavy week. I don't like that she has our current address, but I do not think she will be sending more stuff. If she does, we will tell her to piss up a rope. The funny thing is that I don't hate her. She is a jerk, but this is just too sad to hate. To mock, okay, but not to hate. Now for a few important comments. One commenter said, "God, I read Stargirl when I was like 14. I associated with her for all of a week before realizing that she was definitely a try-hard, manic pixie dream girl whose sole purpose in life was being more unique than anybody." Then OP replied, "I know, right? The cringe is real." I told my friends and they all died laughing. They decided to name the whole affair The Unboxing. I don't think they will ever forgive me for not recording myself while opening the parcel. What makes me wonder is that it's been so long already, like almost 3 years. Come on, girl, get over it. Get a life. Move to Philly, buy a loft, start a noise band, get 6 or 7 roommates, eat hummus with them, book some gigs, paint, smoke cloves, listen to Animal Collective, start some type of salsa company. Stay the hell away from married people who do not want anything to do with you, okay? Am I the idiot, Ellie Chuford, for demanding my boyfriend choose between me and his ex-business partner? I started dating my boyfriend, Jeff, 10 months ago. This relationship has been amazing so far, and I definitely see a future with him. There's just one problem. He has a weird relationship with his ex that's starting to make me really uncomfortable and suspicious. When we started dating, he often talked about his best friend, Jenna, who he also owns a business with. He made it pretty clear that she was an important person to him. I knew they had spent vacations together, and he mentioned hanging out with her parents a few times too. A few weeks after I met him, I creeped through all his pictures on Facebook and saw a bunch of very coupley pictures of him and Jenna. I also found her Instagram and looked through it, and it's filled with pictures of Jeff. A bunch of them had the hashtag hacked relationship goals and other similar things. So in this way, I figured out that they had dated. I kept waiting for him to tell me that himself, but he never did. About 2 months after we started dating, I straight up asked him if he had dated her, and he admitted it. He said that they had met in school and had similar ideals and ambitions. They dated for 9 months and broke up a year and a half ago. I asked him why they'd broken up, and he said their relationship was awful, and they worked much better as friends. They started their business after they broke up, and things have apparently been going well between them since then. I started to get kind of suspicious about her, though, when time passed and I still hadn't met her. I met his friends and family pretty soon after we started dating, but I didn't meet Jenna. I went to numerous social events that I'd expect her to be at, but she was never there. There were a number of occasions when our paths almost crossed, and I really thought I was going to meet her, but I never did. For example, I went to their office a few times to meet Jeff after work, and Jenna was already gone. Or sometimes I'd come to meet him and he'd come outside to meet me, so I wouldn't have to go inside. Things started to get really weird about 3 months ago. Jeff and Jenna were having an open house night one evening. Jeff came over to my place after work and we had a few hours to unalive before it was time to go. So we went out for dinner and then walked to the office. I was kind of expecting that I'd come in and help them set up, but when we were a block away, he started asking me if I had lots of work to do and saying there was a really nice coffee shop nearby. He actually walked me to the coffee shop and sat me down, then left to go get ready with Jenna. He told me to come to the office in an hour and a half. About half an hour before I left for the office, I texted Jeff and said I hoped everything was going well and asked if there was anything I could do. He replied and said, "Something's come up for Jenna, and she can't be here tonight." I was getting really suspicious at this point. I went to the office half an hour later, and sure enough, Jenna wasn't there. People kept asking about her all night, and Jeff told them she'd had a family emergency. When we walked back to the car later that night, he told me what happened. While he and Jenna were getting ready, she had had a panic attack and said she was scared to meet me. She said she wouldn't be able to handle it and either had to leave or he had to tell me not to come. He told her to leave, so she did. Since then, a couple more weird things have happened, and I still haven't met Jenna. Once, when I was hanging out with Jeff, we went to the office so he could grab something. When we were almost there, he looked at his phone and said, "Jenna's still there. Let's just go for a walk." So we walked around the block for half an hour and then came back when she was gone. After that happened, I told Jeff I felt really uncomfortable with the situation. I could respect that they were friends who had dated, but the way she was acting about me was very suspicious. He apologized and said he had actually been really mad at her, but wasn't sure what to do. He also told me a couple other weird stories about things she'd done. He went to a party a few weeks ago. I didn't go, and his phone had died that night. When he got home and charged his phone, it was full of texts from Jenna saying she was outside in her car and asking if I was there or not. She actually never even ended up going to the party simply because she didn't know if I was there or not. Now here's the kicker. Jeff and Jenna are currently on a 2-week-long camping trip. They've been planning this trip since before I met him, but considering the way she's behaved, I feel very uncomfortable about him being on this trip. I just looked at her Instagram, and she's posted 5 new pictures of him. As awesome as Jeff is, I'm really fed up with this, and I'm seriously considering breaking things off when he gets back. Am I being unreasonable? Now for a few important comments. One commenter said, "You're not being unreasonable at all, and I can understand why you feel so upset about the whole situation. If I were you, I'd be asking Jeff a few questions. Does he know the root issue of why she doesn't want to meet you? Is she like this with anyone else? Explain to him that the situation is upsetting you and that you aren't comfortable with him going on a 2-week vacation with her. She is, after all, his ex-girlfriend, and the whole thing strikes me as a little strange. Maybe you could talk about meeting Jenna with Jeff present in a quieter mutual place like a cafe or a restaurant. If Jeff was my boyfriend, I'd be looking for answers. Best of luck to you, and please post an update." I replied, "It's kind of reassuring to hear that other people don't think I'm being unreasonable. I have actually asked him if he knows why she's being like this, and he says he's asked her the same thing and hasn't gotten a clear answer. He said he's asked her if she still has feelings for him, and she said no. They're actually already on their trip, so there's not much I can do about it at this point. I think I'll try probing him a bit more when he gets back and see if he might know a bit more than he's telling me about her behavior. Another commenter added, "You're not only not being unreasonable, but you have put up with way more than most other people would have. I would have noped out of there when I found her Instagram and realized he didn't tell you that he had dated her. Not to mention all the crazy over-the-top nonsense she's pulled since. And he is going on a 2-week-long trip with this girl? Oh God, so much nope," I responded. "Well, I'm glad that at least I'm not the only one who thinks it's weird. I kind of feel like I probably would have called it off already if he wasn't so great in other ways. This is seriously the best relationship I've ever had, but the whole Jenna situation is really over the top." When asked why I wasn't on the camping trip or why it wasn't canceled, I explained, "I have to work and I was never invited. As far as why it wasn't canceled, good question." Then another commenter shared, "I just broke up with my ex last week because of similar behavior. Her ex was super clingy and openly in love with her, and she wanted to stay friends with him. I found out they're going on a vacation together and I straight up wasn't invited. Confronted her about it, and she refused to accept that it was totally messed up behavior. So I dumped her. Confront your boyfriend about this when he gets back. Don't tell him he can't be friends with her. Just tell him how it makes you feel. And if he gets defensive or tries to gaslight you, dump him. Don't let your significant other treat you poorly because they're overly protective of an ex. This girl is very clearly still obsessed with your boyfriend, and her intentions cannot be platonic. Maybe your boyfriend is just a dumb idiot and needs to open his eyes. Or maybe you're just second fiddle in his life." Now, from the original poster. Wow, that sounds kind of creepily similar to my situation. "I'm sorry to hear about your ex. Sounds like you're better off without her. I have decided to confront him when he gets back. I really need to tell him how all of this makes me feel. I've told him it makes me uncomfortable before, but I guess I haven't said exactly how uncomfortable it makes me. And I'm starting to feel like this camping trip is just unacceptable, partially thanks to all the people that have commented here. And I shouldn't have to put up with stuff like this." Now for the 15-month update. I wrote my previous post over a year ago, and a lot has happened since then. For a few months after I wrote my original post, nothing much happened. Jeff and I continued dating, and he continued being friends/partners with Jenna. I never met her, but everything else in our relationship seemed to be going so well that I decided I'd try to deal with it. Things got really hard, however, when I had to take a work contract 12 hours away from home for 3 months. I hardly saw Jeff the whole time, and I looked at Jenna's Instagram almost every day to see if she'd posted more photos of them together. More often than not, she had. Since I wasn't physically present, I felt like Jenna was his real girlfriend. I felt completely worthless and constantly stressed out, knowing my boyfriend was spending all his time with another woman who I already had suspicions about. While I was away for work, I decided to break up with Jeff. I broke up with him as soon as I came back, and I made it very clear that his relationship with Jenna was intolerable for me. I told him he was going to have a hard time dating anyone who wasn't her as long as she was still in his life. He kept saying he didn't understand why it was such a problem. He told me he couldn't control her behavior, but he promised me he hadn't cheated on me. I explained to him that by allowing their friendship to continue, he was condoning her behavior. I told him I didn't really even care if he'd physically cheated or not, since he'd already shown disrespect for me and our relationship. I didn't speak to him for a few months and went on with my life. I took another contract out of town and even considered moving permanently to another city. One night, though, Jeff called me and apologized. He said he had been thinking about our relationship a lot and realized he had been in the wrong. He said his relationship with Jenna was beginning to feel toxic to him, and he'd made arrangements to dissolve their business partnership. After that, I decided to meet up with him, not necessarily give him another chance, and discuss the situation further. When we met up, he promised to stop talking to Jenna and unfollowed her on all social media. As of now, he has not spoken to her in 6 months, and we've gotten back together. We actually ran into her at a concert a few weeks ago, and they didn't even say hi to each other. I feel much more respected and confident in my relationship now.